He almost didn't ask her. The words burned in his throat as he stood there in the auto repair shop, grease on his hands and exhaustion carved into his face, wondering when his life had started feeling so small. The fluorescent lights flickered above him, and in that harsh glow, Marcus felt every one of his 38 years pressing down on his shoulders. What if you were him? A single father in Ohio, juggling overdue bills and a 6-year-old daughter who still believed her dad could fix anything. Would you dare to risk embarrassment just to feel alive again? The woman standing across from him didn't look like someone who belonged in his world of engine oil and dented fenders. She wore a simple emerald dress, elegant but not flashy, her blonde hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. Her name was Victoria. She had walked in earlier that afternoon because her car had stalled on the highway outside Columbus. She didn't complain, she didn't demand. She simply waited, watching him work with quiet patience. There was something in her eyes that made him forget, just for a moment, the weight he carried home every night. Marcus hadn't been on a date in 5 years. Not since his wife, Rachel, lost her battle with cancer. Since then, his world had narrowed to hospital memories, school drop-offs, and late-night shifts at the garage. Every dollar went to keeping the small rented house warm and stocked with cereal his daughter Sophie liked. Romance had become a luxury he couldn't afford. But when Victoria thanked him for staying late to fix her car, her voice soft and genuine, something inside him shifted. He wiped his hands on a rag, heart pounding harder than it had any right to. He thought about Sophie, about how she once asked him why he never smiled anymore. He thought about the loneliness that crept in after bedtime, when the house fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. And before he could talk himself out of it, he asked her if she would be his date that weekend. He expected hesitation, maybe even a polite no. Instead, she smiled in a way that felt almost relieved, as if she had been hoping he would ask. She said yes. That yes echoed in his mind all week. Marcus spent the next few days second-guessing himself. He counted the tips in the jar on his kitchen counter. He calculated how much he could spend on dinner without risking the electric bill. He even ironed the one button-down shirt he owned that wasn't stained with oil. Sophie noticed the change immediately. She twirled around the living room, asking if her dad was going to see a princess. He laughed for the first time in months, telling her he didn't know about princesses, but he hoped the lady liked pizza. Saturday came, and Marcus picked Victoria up in his old pickup truck. He apologized for it before she could say a word, but she ran her hand over the worn leather seat and said she liked things with history. They went to a small Italian restaurant downtown, one with checkered tablecloths and a jukebox that hadn't worked since the 90s. It was the kind of place where Marcus felt safe. They talked for hours. She asked about Sophie, about Rachel, about how he managed everything alone. No one had asked him that in a long time, not really. He admitted there were nights he felt like he was failing, like he was constantly one step behind disaster. He told her about sitting in hospital parking lots, praying for miracles that never came. He didn't realize he was crying until she reached across the table and gently squeezed his hand. Victoria spoke about her own childhood, about growing up in a small town in Michigan, about watching her mother work 2 jobs after her father left. She said it shaped her, made her hungry to build something that would never crumble under pressure. Marcus assumed she worked in some corporate office, maybe marketing or finance. She dressed like it, carried herself like it, but she never mentioned anything more specific. When he dropped her off that night, he felt lighter than he had in years. He kissed her cheek awkwardly, promising to call. As he drove home, he wondered if happiness was something he was allowed to have again. If you were in his place, would you let yourself hope? Or would you guard your heart, terrified of losing everything twice? 2 weeks later, Marcus found out who Victoria really was. It happened by accident. A customer left a business magazine in the waiting area of the shop. Marcus picked it up absent-mindedly during his lunch break, flipping through pages filled with skyscrapers and stock market charts. Then he saw her face, Victoria Reynolds, CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, headquartered in Chicago with offices across the United States. The article described her as a visionary, a self-made millionaire before 40. It mentioned her strategic acquisitions, her philanthropic foundation, and her estimated net worth in numbers that made Marcus's stomach twist. He stared at the glossy photo. The same eyes, the same smile. His first feeling wasn't pride, it was panic. He replayed every moment of their dates, every casual joke about his rusty truck, every confession about overdue bills. He felt exposed, like he had unknowingly stepped into a world far above his own. What would someone like her want with a mechanic who could barely afford summer camp for his daughter? That evening, when Victoria came by the shop unannounced, Marcus confronted her gently. He asked why she hadn't told him. She looked almost hurt and said she had wanted someone to see her, not her title. She said that when he asked her out, he didn't know she had money, and that made it the most honest invitation she'd received in years. Marcus struggled with his pride. He told her he didn't want charity. He didn't want to feel like a project she was trying to fix. She listened quietly, then told him she wasn't there to rescue him. She was there because when he talked about Sophie, his entire face changed. She was there because he stayed late to fix a stranger's car without charging extra. She was there because he had asked her out with trembling courage, not calculation. The turning point came when Sophie met Victoria. Marcus had been nervous, afraid his daughter would grow attached too quickly. But Sophie walked straight up to Victoria, holding a crayon drawing of a lopsided family with 3 stick figures. She asked if Victoria liked spaghetti and bedtime stories. Victoria knelt down in her expensive coat and said those were 2 of her favorite things in the world. Later that night, Marcus watched from the kitchen doorway as Victoria read to Sophie on the couch. There was no performance in her voice, no polished executive persona. Just warmth, just presence. Over the following months, their relationship deepened. Victoria never offered to pay Marcus's bills. Instead, she encouraged him to expand the garage, to believe in his own talent. She introduced him to a small business advisor, but made sure he was the one making every decision. Marcus worked harder than ever, not because she was wealthy, but because she believed he was capable of more than survival. The garage slowly transformed. New lifts replaced the old ones. The waiting room got fresh paint. Customers increased. For the first time since Rachel's death, Marcus felt like he wasn't just enduring life. He was building it. One evening, standing outside the shop as the sun dipped below the Ohio skyline, Marcus realized something profound. Victoria's money hadn't saved him. Her faith had. And his courage to ask one simple question had changed everything. If this story moved you even a little, take a moment to comment and share what part touched your heart the most. And if you believe in second chances, in the quiet bravery of ordinary people, and in love that sees beyond titles and bank accounts, then please like, share, comment, and subscribe only if this story truly meant something to you.